Morrell Glass Studio. I'm Richard Morrell. In this first part of a series on glass blowing special skills, we're going to look at gathering, or how best to get the molten glass onto the iron. Now, poor gather will cause ongoing problems throughout the forming of any piece, so the first thing we must learn is how to gather well. Before we gather, we have to prepare the iron. It should be a dull red heat, free from soot and dust, and dry inside. After warming the iron, we cap the open end with our thumb and briefly quench in water to clean off the dust and soot. We then hang the iron down and blow through to clear any moisture. Do this properly and there should be no need to keep cooling the iron while we're working. Now, there are several different types of gather which are used for different operations. The first of these is a simple coat gather, where the gob is built up in a series of coats to the required size. This type of gather is the most used in the studio. The objective is to keep the coats even and to avoid trapping bubbles. Having warmed the iron and cleared it, we lift the back end of the iron high so we can push the iron into the glass as near vertical as possible. Then make one full turn clockwise to form an even lip, before slowly lowering the back end as we speed up the rotation. As the fresh gather emerges above the surfaces of the melt, we allow the tail to drop off before withdrawing from the furnace. If our left hand gets uncomfortably hot, we can turn it around, back to front, as we gather. Repeat the process to build up the required weight of glass, blocking and or marvering each gather and blowing out as required. Be sure to keep the rims of each gather separate and level. This is important because if the moil, the part of the gather covering the iron, is uneven, it becomes almost impossible to center the gather correctly. Here we make a second gather, repeating the process as before. It's important to push the iron into the glass as vertically as possible to avoid trapping bubbles. Now we see a third gather. Remember to keep the rim of each gather even, just below each other. If we are making a larger piece, stripping off part of the gather can help to place the weight of the gather correctly. To do this, we make a simple coat gather. Then directly after leaving the furnace, the iron is held vertically over a bucket, allowing some of the gather to run off. Bring the iron to horizontal. Wind the tail around the tip of the gather until it separates. The second type of gather is a bulk gather, where we gather up a larger mass of molten glass with the iron. Bulk gathers are generally used for bits such as stems, feet and handles. And they're also used for mould blowing and often casting as well. To make a bulk gather, we start by pushing the iron near vertically into the melt, making one full turn as before. Then the back end is lowered, and as we speed up the rotation, push it across the surface to form a wave, which is gathered up around the gather as we tail off. For good bit serves, the fresh mass of molten glass needs to be rapidly pulled off the iron to prevent the core becoming chilled. This can be done with the marver or the block, or by shaking the iron side to side directly after leaving the furnace. The third type of gather we use is the double gather. This is generally used for smaller pieces such as goblet cups. The objective is to gather a good mass of hot glass with minimal temperature differences between the layers. The first gather should be a light coat over the nose of the iron. Allow most of the gather to run back before tailing off. Then withdraw from the furnace and allow just enough time for the tail to melt in, around 5 or 10 seconds, before gathering again. This time, push the iron into the glass near vertical, make one full turn as usual, before levelling out the iron as it increases the speed of rotation. As in the bulk gather, we push the gather across the surface of the melt to form a wave, which is gathered up as we tail off, before withdrawing from the furnace. There are other types of gather which are used in glass blowing. We explore these further in Morrell's Guide to Glass Blowing, which you can find on Vimeo. Thanks for watching and good day.